Reverend Laura here. The message for you today, just checking in. Been thinking a lot about grief lately, and I know we're all experiencing grief in different ways right now, grieving the loss of being able to do things the way that we used to be able to do things, grieving spending time with friends and family, grieving the presence of our coworkers, our fellow classmates, all of those kinds of things. I always say grief is an expression of love, which it is. So, we get used to being able to spend time with people that we care about and doing that in a certain way. And it can be sad when we're not able to do that. And we grieve all kinds of things. We grieve, it's not just, people think grief is just maybe about, when somebody dies, and it certainly is. But there are so many other things we can grieve. We can grieve the loss of a role in our lives. Might experience this with like empty nest, when our kids leave, that role that we had as parents on a daily basis changes, and we grieve that loss. Or we see it when people retire. They grieve that daily way of being that they were at work. And these are all normal things. We can grieve all kinds of losses of things: material, people, roles, times of our lives. Certainly people are grieving like not being able to go to prom or graduation ceremonies right now. There's a lot of that going on. And so I just want to make space to hold all that. And when you're thinking about how those things feel to you, remember that it's grief. And there are lots of ways that we express grief. We can be sad sometimes. We can be in denial, which a lot of times just looks like being numb and not having feelings about it. It's not necessarily saying, no, that's not happening, so much as it's just kind of like not even acknowledging it with our feelings. So that's a normal feeling. And sadness is a normal feeling. Anger is another feeling. Bargaining is another feeling, where you kind of like try and negotiate ways that it could be different in your life. And it's normal that we have all of these feelings when we're grieving. So I just want to make space for that. Make sure that everybody is making space for that. So if you're feeling angry and you're feeling agitated, particularly one day, it could be that you're experiencing grief around something. So it might be a good idea to just, take a few minutes, spend some time with your feelings, try and go a little bit deeper as to why you're really feeling that way, and maybe make some loving space for it. And see if you can create some loving space around that. Because as I said, grief is an expression of love. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about why you love that thing and still how you want to be in relationship with it, whatever it is, whether it was a job, a way of being every day, your coworkers. And in some instances with what's going on right now, you might find creative ways to engage being with that, so that it's not necessarily grief like you've lost it completely, but it's just that you need to do it differently, which is another thing that I want to talk to you about today. So doing things differently. Right before I started my ministry at Minnesota Valley, I heard a quote that has stuck with me ever since. I was doing a workshop on transitional ministry, and this quote came up, and it was attributed to Anonymous, who has a lot of quotes out there, by the way. And the quote is, "Tradition is the preservation of fire and not the worship of ashes." I'm going to say that again and let it sink in. Tradition is the preservation of fire and not the worship of ashes. So what that means is that we need to look at things and really figure out what the fire is behind it, not the fuel, right? So for instance, our fellowship is largely grounded in a sense of community, right? Community is the fire. Being together, this is where my people are. This is what I hear from a lot of members and friends of why the fellowship is so important to them. That is the fire, right? That is what we're trying to preserve. Now, being together at church on Sunday, I'm not saying that's ashes. It's not. But that was the fuel for the fire. So now we find different ways to do that. We do it online, right? We're still together. We're still preserving the fire of community. So those are the important things. So when you look at how things are in your life, try to really distill down to what it is that's the fire that's under that. What are you trying to create from that? Are you trying to create community? Are you trying to create relationship? Because often those are the things that really matter, and the means to doing them, the ways that we do or attain those things, a lot of times those are things that are easier to switch out if we just kind of remove our attachment to the ways that we were doing things and instead remain attached to the thing that really matters. In this case, it's community, and doing things like this video today, which helps me reach out to you and let you know that I'm all thinking about you. And I am thinking about you every day in every way, and I hope that you're all well and safe, and I'll see you on Sunday.